My goodness, managers getting sacked all over the place. Benzema going crazy against Valladolid. Napoli crumbling at home. This weekend was wild. So let's get into it, but some quick housekeeping, guys. First, Champions League preview is coming out tomorrow or Wednesday. And second, I'll be heading to Mexico on a half vacation. I'll still be working while I'm there to get content out to you guys. But since I fly next weekend, there will be no weekend recap next Monday. Okay, let's go. Manchester City versus Liverpool. This one absolutely stuck to the script in terms of illustrating the gulf in quality between these two sides this season. Even without a free-scoring Haaland on the pitch, Manchester City always looked like they had a goal in them every single time they got near the Liverpool box. And I mean, Alvarez is no slouch, man. This kid, as you guys all saw at the World Cup, is such a joy to watch. But before we get there, this was a match of two halves, kind of. Liverpool looked dangerous on the counter in the first half. That goal from Salah was lovely after some tidy hold-up play from Diogo Jota. But Liverpool's midfield with Henderson and Fabinho was completely overrun again. City could scythe their way through them with ease, and Grealish was a massive headache down that left side as well. So seeing Grealish set up City's first with a great squared ball to Alvarez was no surprise, really. Oh, and that came moments after Grealish had tracked all the way back to stop a Liverpool counter. He later would get a goal for himself in what was one of the better displays I've seen from him in a City shirt. Maybe the best? Getting ahead of myself here, but as I was saying, Liverpool at least carried a threat going forward in that first half, but in the second, collapse. Didn't stand a chance against City. I mean, possession is kind of a funny stat, as what you do with your possession means more than the actual number that you're looking at percentage-wise. But to paint a picture for anyone who missed this match, Liverpool had one attempt, a miss, and 25% possession in that second half. Terrible. So what's the issue? The defense isn't exactly in good form. None of them are, really. And it doesn't help that Liverpool's midfield is non-existent and provides absolutely zero protection for that back line. So when you have Mahrez, De Bruyne, Alvarez, Grealish, etc., all buzzing around them, there was only ever one outcome here. City with a commanding 4-1 win, Liverpool looking like they just want this disaster season to come to an end. Signings needed for them, big time. How about the other team in the title hunt? Arsenal hosted Leeds United, and once again they looked like a league-leading side, like they're worthy of that top spot. This was a routine win for them, also winning 4-1, and with Gabriel Jesus returning to the attack, Arsenal are looking even stronger, if you can believe it. Gabriel Jesus returning, Bukayo Saka hitting some world-class form since the World Cup. I mean, they're terrifying prospects in facing this team. Big match coming soon too. Anyway, Bournemouth, they are not going down without a fight, man. They beat a tricky proposition in Fulham this weekend as the Cherries, who I was convinced were dead in the water not long ago, have won 3 and lost 3 of their last 6 matches. Okay, it's not silverware form, but it's certainly survival form if they can keep it up. They'll be encouraged by the fact that Leicester City, whom they play soon, has been on a terrible run of late. Winless in 6 matches with 5 losses in that stretch, thus costing Brendan Rodgers his job. This weekend they lost to Crystal Palace, another team that recently changed managers, as they now sit in the relegation zone. Leicester, that is. Crystal Palace, mid-table. Speaking of poor performances, just when you thought Chelsea were catching form, they lost to Aston Villa. Emery masterclass, of course. But they lose to Villa at home. Yes, we have to preface this by saying that Emi Martinez was on one as he made 7 saves, 6 of which coming from strikes in the box. But there is no world where Chelsea, with this squad, should be losing to Aston Villa and thus trading positions with Chelsea. Chelsea to the bottom half of the table, Villa up to 9th and threatening to pass Liverpool now. But more table talk later. Now, we will get to the news that came out on Sunday regarding Chelsea in a second and their manager. But there is one sense where I feel for Potter, as he was, I should say, dealing with mistakes from Kepa in this game, as he had a terrible performance, as well as his front line failing to convert. I mean, Mudryk alone could have had 2 goals, should have had 2 goals. As a manager, there's not much you can do there. But I'm not saying that he is absolved of any blame, of course. But when your team is misfiring like that, it's not so different from what they did under Tuchel as well for long stretches. Goals are a problem at Chelsea and have been for a while. And so when the defending goes out the window, here we are. But again, it's not all on Chelsea here, as you have to give credit to Emery and Villa as well. As Opta pointed out, since Emery took over, only Arsenal with 13 and City with 10 have more Premier League wins than Villa, who have won 9 times under Emery. And here we go, to the surprise of very few, to no one really, Chelsea have sacked Graham Potter. I mean, how much longer could they really allow things to go on like this with just 4 wins in 2023? It felt inevitable, especially considering it's Chelsea. They have this culture about them where managers have a short lifetime. It was started by Abramovich, but it's bled into the support as well, where some of their supporters are quick to demand the head of their manager. I mean, that happens with other clubs as well, of course. It's not just a Chelsea thing, it's a modern football thing, but Chelsea have a pedigree of doing it, and that has lived on since Abramovich left. It's rare nowadays that you see cases like Arteta, where a manager is allowed to have a rough period, and they then deliver on that faith later on that was put in them. West Ham pushed Southampton's heads further underwater as Naif Aguerd's winner ensured Southampton stay at the bottom of the table, the basement boys. Meanwhile, Brentford and Brighton, two of the hipsters' picks teams, they played out a stunning 3-3 draw. Wish I was watching that one. And finally, United had a very difficult time away to Newcastle, a team looking to get some revenge for the League Cup loss, and they got it in convincing fashion, man. Newcastle United were 100% deserving of their win over Manchester United, who look a shadow of themselves without Casemiro in the midfield, don't they? Well, Newcastle United defended well against a fairly anemic United attack. The goals that Newcastle got were also lovely. Bruno Guimaraes with a chip ball to the back post that was headed back across goal by St. Maximin and converted by Willock. Willock making up for those misses in the first half when he should have had a couple of goals. The other, the substitute Callum Wilson for 2-0. I think the only player who can walk away with their head held high in this one from United would be De Gea, maybe, as he made key saves in the first half. And what did that win do? Newcastle United leapfrog Manchester United. So let's see what happens as the season runs out. And Arsenal is ahead of City by 8 points again. City with the match in hand. Also at the bottom, look at that bottom three, eh? Premier League mainstays that are all looking in danger of potentially going down. Real Madrid were propelled to a massive victory over Real Valladolid thanks to Ramadan Benz, as some lovingly call him, as Benzema seems to perform incredibly well while he's fasting for Ramadan. Himself even saying once, quote, "I feel good when I'm fasting." Last season, he scored a hat-trick against Chelsea despite breaking his fast just 15 minutes before the match. Yesterday, he scored a 7-minute hat-trick against Valladolid, and my word, was it ever a quality hat-trick. No easy tap-ins, no scuffed finishes, no massively deflected efforts. Oh, quality all around. Rodrigo opened the scoring, and then Vinny and Benzema linked for the second goal. Delicious play from Vinny as well, as he cut in and hit a low curling cross to the back post that Benzema dove for and nearly took his own head off on the post. His second and Madrid's third was a stunning strike from outside of the box that curled inside the post, and the third from him, I mean, come on. An acrobatic finish with his back to goal, a lovely little bicycle kick. Applause all around. After an hour, Benzema, Vinicius, and Alaba were all hauled off by Ancelotti. Good thinking. And we caught a glimpse of Eden Hazard for the first time since Real beat Cacereño in the Copa del Rey on January 3rd, 2023, over 2 months ago. In fact, Hazard got an assist for Real's 6th goal, setting up Lord Vasquez. Asensio got the other one, as he has been the sleeper scorer for Real Madrid this season, hasn't he? But considering he's basically strictly getting appearances through substitutions, he's doing well. Just look at his minutes compared to the ones around him. 50% fewer minutes on average. Barcelona also eased to a victory against Elche this weekend. Elche, of course, are all but relegated, you would think, as they sit in 20th with 13 points. 13 behind 19th place Valencia. Lewandowski with 2 goals and an assist in this one, as he was dominant, and it was nice to see Ansu Fati get a start and a goal, as this season has been a tough one for the youngster. Ferran Torres also looked very good, actually. Lewandowski setting him up for Barca's 4th goal. Gabri Vega, one of the more sought-after La Liga talents, grabbed another assist this weekend in Celta's 2-2 draw with Almeria. Shout out Seferovic for getting the goal as well. What a guy. Sevilla, a team that was once looking down the barrel of relegation, got a very important win over Cadiz, a fellow survival aspirant. Lucas Ocampos and Youssef En-Nesyri with the goals for Sevilla, as they will face who next? The aforementioned Celta. Should be a fierce one. And now let's go to Editor Adrian for Atletico versus Real Betis. That's a nice matchup, isn't it? So Atletico Madrid, they continue to improve in this latter half of the season. Now that they're out of Europe, out of all the cup competitions, they were playing at home against Real Betis, and they got a late winner from Angel Correa in the 86th minute to give them the 3 points. And what does that do for the table? Well, they are now just 5 points behind Real Madrid. Real, of course, are 12 behind Barcelona as they continue to lead the league. Real Sociedad fallen off a little bit, 6 points behind Atletico Madrid, as you see that top three once again, year upon year, pulling away. Inter Milan, it's crumbling around them a little bit at the moment, isn't it? One win in their last 6 matches across all competitions, and this weekend they made it 2 consecutive losses at home as they fell 1-0 to Fiorentina. The other week we were talking about how Vincenzo Italiano, has Fiorentina flying, and the international break didn't throw them off at all, as that makes it 8 consecutive wins across all competitions for Fiorentina. In that stretch, they have defeated both Milan clubs. Both Milan clubs looking weird. We'll talk about AC Milan and their topsy-turvy form in a bit. Or editor Adrian will, at least. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic smacked in another great free kick as Lazio beat Monza 2-0 this weekend to ensure that they will extend their lead over Inter. Sarri's side opened the scoring through Pedro in just the 13th minute. By the way, that win stretches Lazio's unbeaten run to 6 matches, matching that of Fiorentina for the longest current unbeaten streak in Serie A at the moment. Moise Kean finished off a nice attacking move from Juve to win the match against Hellas Verona. Certainly some major questions to be asked of that Verona defense, but I mean, we've been saying that all season long, right? You don't accumulate 19 points from 28 matches by having a good defense, do you? Verona are in big trouble. Speaking of big trouble, Sampdoria, another relegation candidate, went away to Mr. Big Trouble's AS Roma and fell thanks to a goal from Wijnaldum. Really makes me happy to see Wijnaldum back and scoring goals. I know he started to get a bad rep in his final season at Liverpool and was considered a disaster at PSG by some of their supporters, but when he's in form, he's smooth to watch. Hit the post in this one as well, prior to converting that header at the back post. Great ball by Matic, by the way. Oh. Speaking of smooth players, Dybala scored from the spot, and El Shaarawy killed the game to make it 3-0. Atalanta went away to Cremonese, the team with just a single win in Serie A, and as you might expect, Atalanta eased to a 3-1 win. It felt a little spooky for a moment in the second half when the hosts Cremonese equalized from the spot, but Højlund set up Braga for what would be the winner in the 72nd minute. Ademola Lookman, I mean, he just can't help himself. He scored his 13th goal right at the death. What a season he's having. However, he had cooled off scoring-wise lately. That was his first goal since January 28th. Bologna beat up Udinese 3-0. I mean, these teams in mid-table are always fun to watch. Matches can go in any direction, really, but Bologna deserve a lot of plaudits. They've had some nice results this season and almost accumulated more points than last season already. Currently, they're on 40 points in 9th place, whereas they got 46 points last season and finished in 13th. And to editor Adrian now to talk about the big one in Italy, AC Milan taking on Napoli. I don't get it with AC Milan. I really don't understand them. The fact that they can stink it up for most of the season, especially at the beginning of 2023, then they found a little form, then they lost it again, losses against Fiorentina, failing to beat Salernitana, then they go away to Napoli, one of the best teams in Europe, Napoli without Victor Osimhen though, I will say that, and they beat them 4-0. I mean, with or without Osimhen, it shouldn't make that big of a difference. 4-0. Alexis Salamakers looking like Neymar out there at one point, the way he was cutting through that defense and then nutmegging Meret in goal. It was crazy. Rafael Leão, by the way, he also looked very good. Brahim Diaz also looked very strong in that first half for AC Milan. He got taken out for Salamakers in that second half. But 4-0. Napoli. They struggle against the Milan teams, it seems. But they still have a 16-point lead over Lazio. Milan, they're on 51 points now. They move up into third. Roma and Inter both on 50 points. Atalanta, Juve. Juve, if they get those 15 points back, they're going to be right there, 12 points behind Napoli. Well, you would have been forgiven for thinking that Borussia Dortmund could potentially get something from their Klassiker match against Bayern Munich, a side that had just sacked their manager, and yes, well, a top manager and Tuchel took over. Who knows? Maybe it would be too much too soon for Bayern against the formerly league-leading Borussia Dortmund. Uh-oh, I just gave it away. But then again, this is Borussia Dortmund playing away to Bayern Munich, where they always get absolutely smashed. The last time Borussia Dortmund won at the Allianz Arena, April 2017, when Dortmund beat Bayern in the Pokal. That was 7 Allianz Arena matches ago. In fact, just looking at Bundesliga matches, Bayern have won 9 in a row against Dortmund at home. So yes, of course Borussia Dortmund fell to Bayern 4-2, but the way in which they had collapsed, even from the start, will have been very disappointing. They had completely lost the mental game. You could tell. Kobel, perhaps the most nervous of them all, with that horrible gaff to gift Bayern a goal, swinging almost a miss. He did clip it into his own net, barely. 10 minutes later, and Thomas Müller already had a brace. By the 50th minute, Coman had made it 4-0. Coman, by the way, was simply fantastic once again. Great season for him. Dortmund would pull 2 back, but this was another good example in the difference in mentality from Bayern. Elite, winning mentality versus the fragile mentality that Dortmund adopts every time they play Bayern, it feels like. Oh, and Tuchel switching back to the favored 4-2-3-1 that has basically become the Bayern DNA at this point. That's smart. Flick did the same thing when he took over for Kovac, and they found success again there right away. It just works for them. You just have to play it, and you have to play Müller. Elsewhere, Union got a 3-0 win over Stuttgart thanks to a second half blitz. Geraldo Becker with the opener in the 51st, then Behrens doubling it in the 65th, and an own goal 3 minutes later left Stuttgart wondering what life will be like in Bundesliga 2. Well, they're not done yet, but they have dropped to dead last. Stuttgart are actually having beers in the basement with Schalke, as Schalke, 1 place above them and 1 point above them, was clapped 3-0 by Leverkusen. Moussa Diaby with 2 assists and Florian Wirtz with a goal. Great to have him back, eh? He's such a special player, and that was his first goal since his return, to go with his 4 assists. A result nobody will have seen coming was, well, the continuation of Leipzig stinking it up lately. That 7-0 loss to Manchester City messed them up, man. They followed that up with a loss to Bochum, of course, and this weekend lost 3-0 at home against Mainz. Now, Mainz are no bottom half of the table team. In fact, they're now just 5 points behind RB Leipzig, but this shouldn't be happening to this talented Leipzig side. After going undefeated for so long, they have 4 losses in their previous 5 matches. Hopefully, for their sake, Marco Rose can turn things around. In fact, let's look at the table now. Bayern jumped past Dortmund by 2 points, while Union are 4 points off the top. That's still so impressive. Shout out Union, what a club, and I will never stop saying that. The top 3 are getting a bit of distance on Freiburg and Leipzig as both teams drop points. Freiburg drew 1-1 with Hertha. And then you have Wolfsburg through Eintracht Frankfurt, who are all separated by just 2 points before there's another little gap points-wise in the standings. All right, guys, like I said, we'll get the Champions League preview out to you in a day or two, probably a couple of days, and then another video later on in the week. Sound good? Good. Ciao, guys. Thanks for watching.